Right, I've had dinner. I've got nothing else planned as such. Excuse me. So I might as well give the update regarding this missing hiker Neil Skinner, or missing camper. And before I start, I want to reiterate I have no agenda. I came into this a bit naive, I would say, to be honest. Believing, I suppose, like lots of people, that if you go searching in a group or whatever, you're bound to come across him because, you know, you have it in your head, oh, we've worked out where he might be, and so on and so on. So, yeah, very naive. And then I realised as the searching went and carried on and carried on, and don't forget, I've been doing it nearly a year now. I think this is making it something like, if I complete the 6 days, it's something like 40, nearly 40 days in total I've been done it. And that would be in groups of maybe 6 visits to the area, I would say, maybe a bit more. Anyway, so I have no agenda. I've always wanted to try and help the family, trying to help Neil's loved ones. I definitely don't have no ulterior motives, excuse me, for doing it for myself. I will show you. I could make my YouTube monetize it. I haven't, and I'll show you a screenshot just to prove that I have not claimed a penny off my my YouTube channel. So no one can say I've been doing this to try and improve my ratings or trying to get some money in, or you know, whatever excuses people use. But I will say this before I go any further, that in the future I will monetize it, not for myself. I was thinking there must be a way I can raise some cash through my channels, whatever it is, if it's only a few pounds or whatever, and then donate that to Mountain Rescue, and then I'll find some kind of way of proving that that money has gone to Mountain Rescue, so that's not gone into my pocket. As I say, YouTube is never something I've never taken serious. You know, I'm sorry, this is my part. You know what I mean? I love watching other people's videos, but on my part, I just wanted to share my experiences when I was doing the traveling, and I wanted to show the videos to help the family and friends of Neil and anyone else I would search in the future, and also to prove to anyone that I get any other searches that I get involved in, that there's never been intentions to publicise myself or make money from other people's suffering or anything like that, because I'm not into that. Right, how do I start? We start at the beginning. When I first got involved with, I mean, I think if you look back at my videos, I was visiting the area and I saw the poster on the bridge near, just before Loch Dochard. And I was getting kind of, I got a little bit of reception. I was kind of getting mixed kind of reports, you know, some press releases were saying this, some press releases saying that. So it was very confusing. So as soon as I saw the Hype for Neil group come out, I thought, well, I know the area. I got in touch with some of the people that are organising or involved in it. And I decided to meet. And I met some really nice people, and I got the story from, how can I say this, from the family. I won't say what I was going to say because I don't want anything to sound negative. I got the story from the family direct, because they're all in group and we were all going over the subject. And there was a lot of things that changed and crisscrossed and all that, but I think that would happen in any search, because people will pick things up wrong, and you know, kind of it gets transferred down like Chinese whispers, you know, the bits added on or whatever. So I understood that. So, but it was nice to speak to the family members and actually get it straight from them. And it was made clear to me, and others standing right beside me, and as I say, I have no reason to lie, that the story or tale or facts, whatever we like to call it, were that Neil come up with his 2 friends, and they passed Loch Dochard and this would be the Saturday. I'll put the date up because I always forget the dates. The day before, they stopped at Tyndrum, the campground there, and made the way to Victoria Bridge. And as I say, they hiked up to Loch Dochard, and they passed Loch Dochard. They did not camp. No one camped at Loch Dochard. Their intentions were to carry on towards Glenetiv, but I mean, obviously that's quite a distance, so they were going to camp somewhere further along, probably near the lodge, Glenkinglass Lodge, somewhere around there. I'm guessing. That's an assumption on my part. I don't know for a fact. But an hour and a half after passing Loch Dochard, the two friends reported that Neil said, and I quote, he was not feeling it. They never said he was ill. No one reported him being ill or feeling tired or anything. He just wasn't feeling it. So he decided to turn round after talking to them, and they gave him a car key, a spare car key, because he had possessions in the car, and they thought Neil's intention, he said to them, was he's going to camp at Loch Dochard and stay there. So they gave him the car key with the intentions that if he needed anything from the car, he could use the spare car key and hike back to Victoria Bridge to the car. So that's what I was told. They carried on with their journey. How far, we don't know. And Neil went back to Loch Dochard and pitched his tent, and that's where the tent was found and all his possessions, and no Neil, sadly. Anyway, I then started seeing in the press that, and as the reports went along through the year, that they were saying that it was a different story. And the story, or tale, or facts, whatever we like to call it, was that they came up on the Saturday, just after, the Friday being at the campground at Tyndrum, and they camped. All three of them camped at Loch Dochard. So that's changed. And then the next day, the next morning, the Sunday, and I put the date up again, and this is in May 2022, they set off in the morning after spending that night at Loch Dochard. And an hour and a half into the hike, Neil then said he wasn't feeling it, or different versions came out. There was, he's not feeling it, he's not feeling well, or he's feeling too tired. There was all kinds of versions put out. And so he turned round, again, the same intentions, to pitch at Loch Dochard, and the friends were going to continue. The friends gave him a key, spare car key, with the same intentions that if he wanted to go back to the car, he'd pick out his possessions. So that was that version. Then I was scrolling through the internet, and there's so much on the internet, and you have to take anything you read on the internet with a pinch of salt. But there's a website called Web Sleuths, and it deals with missing cases, mysteries, things like that. And there's a lot of people on there. I know for a fact Beneath the Surface is on there. And the case came up about Neil Skinner being missing at Loch Dochard. Now, the posts were posted 6 months after Neil went missing. And it was posted by a family member, and I will put the screenshots on so you can see for yourself, and the date and what was said. And you can quite clearly see that this family member, who I've now realised is his other daughter, not the daughter that's been talking to the press, this is his other daughter, has stated that the press get it wrong. Press get their facts wrong, and this daughter, the family member, made truth what happened. Clarified the facts, and she states quite clearly that Neil, as they approached Loch Dochard on the Saturday, Neil said at Loch Dochard he was not going to go any further. He was going to pitch at Loch Dochard, and his friends continued. So this is a third version, and this is coming from the family member that's been verified by the website, and we now know, and I've clarified, I know who it is now. It is his other daughter. I won't give names or anything because that doesn't mean anything, but what it means is this person has made clear that the press got things wrong. Now, that's contradicted the other daughter that's been saying the other facts. So that was confusing for me. And as you can see, they she says on a further post, he he was left with 5 days food by the friends. He was left with 5 days food. That's insinuating that, they gave him 5 days, or they knew he had 5 days, but I believe Neil had the 5 days. Either way, what was Neil supposed to be doing for 5 days at Loch Dochard by himself? I mean, let's be honest, I could go up there with the dogs, sit around the loch for 5 days, go hiking around the area. Yeah, you could do it maybe 1 or 2 days, but after that, you get bored. And don't forget, Neil Skinner was 71, 72, close to 72 at the time, in poor health. He suffered from Asperger's. There's been rumours that he also had dementia, Alzheimer's, sorry, which leads to dementia. It could have been playing a part in his life, because he got confused and got lost many times, especially at later stages. And don't forget, this was the same couple that hiked with Neil in the Isle of Skye the year before, in 2021, where he went missing. He disappeared. They separated, and the story again, or the facts are that Neil decided he wanted to stay lower down, and his friends wanted to go higher ground and higher areas. But in fact, what happened is Neil was found by the mountain rescue after 5 hours going missing, coming down from the higher ground. They had the helicopter out and everything. He was missing for 5 hours. So why would two friends leave Neil at Loch Dochard for 5 days and give him a car key, saying to him that if you need to get your gear, you can go back to Victoria Bridge and pick any bits you need? I mean, this is a guy that got lost only months earlier in 2021. So I tried approaching the family and sent them a message, and I got, totally rebuffed on it. They kind of swiped me out and didn't want to talk to me. And I thought, I was only trying to find out which one is right, because one family member is saying one thing, and another family member saying something else. So I was like, I'm out here trying to search. I'm trying to find, your loved one. And it's confusing, because if I don't know the facts, I don't know what's going on. Because if one story is saying one thing and one's saying the other, what else has been said wrong or been confusing? And am I chasing around shadows? And that was my worry, you know what I mean? But I was polite and everything. But once I raised the question about the two stories, I was kind of slam shut, you know what I mean? And don't forget, I'm only trying to help them, you know what I mean? There's nothing in it for me. I'm not trying to embarrass anything. I mean, if someone talked to me straight and said, "Oh, we made a mistake," I would have been fine. I wouldn't have reported it. I would have kept quiet, and But I was very suspicious. The other thing is, these photos of Neil that are on these posters, I've worked out. See, the report is like, you see these posters and Neil's in a red coat with a backpack. And I don't know if you can see his face. You know when that was taken? That was when he was 60, 62 years of age. That was not a recent photo of him. He's 10 years older when he went missing. I'll now show you a picture of Neil just before he went missing. This was taken, again, everything I'm showing you and reporting to you is on the internet. It's anyone can research it. Anyone can just type this in. I'm not going to show the pictures of the other two people that were family members with him on the time when this photo was taken, because I'm not going to do that. But this is a photo of Neil. It's not the best. I can zoom in, but you can see this man is much frailer, much older. He's 71, 72. He does look different. I also did a lot of research on Neil, and just to find out, his interest in everything. And the good thing about Facebook, some people might say it's a bad thing, that in this kind of situation where Neil went missing, the only person that can close his account is Neil. Family members can't shut it down, not that I know of. And Neil's profile was public, and you can see his likes, his dislikes, his interests, communication he's having with people, what kind of friends he's got, who his friends are, and everything. And all his interests. Yeah, he's got Scotland Brewery, he's got wildlife, things like that. But Neil is not. I mean, that photo where he was taken when he was 62 is probably when he did a bit of wild camping. I mean, there's nothing in his recent years or anything to show he was a hiker or anything. When he was at Skye, they're walking. They, you know, the picture being portrayed as that Neil was like some person that's going under Munros and over the mountains. And let's be honest, you know, he's 71, 72. He's in poor health from what we've been told. He was at Skye in 2021. Then he's at Loch Dochard in 2022. I mean, it's not like he's in Scotland every month like myself or a lot of other people. He's not doing it on a regular basis if he was a local or something like that. Like people in the Lake District and all that are always up the mountains and all that. So I think these days of being, that photo is misleading. It's kind of giving his impression this guy is an outdoors person, fit, healthy looking as such, you know, and got his backpack and all that, but it's far from the truth. He's I'm sorry, you know, he was in poor health, or so we've been told, and he was getting lost, he was getting confused. And again, on this web sleuth, the family member that's been verified now, that is his daughter, his other daughter, it's saying he was getting lost all the time. He was getting lost even in younger years. You know what I mean? He was terrible for coordination and you know, being by himself. So, a lot of things. And going back to the other thing, if people were identifying saying we believe we saw Neil at his tent, that photo is when he's 62, 62. The reality is, and you've seen the photo that shows him at recent times, how can you identify someone from some photo when 10 years ago? It's like me putting a photo out and say, have you seen Bill? And Bill's missing, and I put a photo of myself 10 years ago. You know what I mean? It's like someone said to me, if you put a photo in front of people and say, was this the person you see? 9 times out of 10 people will say, yeah, that was him. And that's why I can't put any credence or guarantee that the person that these people say they might have seen was actually Neil. It could have been anyone, especially seeing that he was not in a red jacket, he was not backpacking, and he's certainly photos well out of date, 10 years at least. You know what I mean? So I'm getting all these kind of minor discrepancies, but then they're adding up. You know what I mean? And then I'm thinking, like, you know, he's not this great athletic mountaineering kind of person. You know, he don't mind walking. I believe he was involved with some friends that used to do some rambling, and you know, this typical Saturday or Sunday afternoon kind of hike for 2-3 hours, then end up in a pub or whatever, and then go home, and then maybe do it next week or organise something. But they weren't. That was as far as it basically went in these later years. I'm not saying he's never ever wild camped in his life. I'm saying that in his later years, he's not been this fitness kind of person. You know what I mean? So to expect a man of that age to get far from his tent, and don't forget his watch. Sorry, not his watch. His wallet, his phone. I believe some keys. I don't know. I can't guarantee that, but his waterproofs, his hiking post, his head torch, food, water, sleeping bag, backpack, all were in the tent. And the only signs that life had been there was, I think there was some half a tea or half a coffee, that obviously was cold, and evidence of one of the dehydrated meals had been eaten. And he'd soaked his porridge. So, that says to me and says to most people that you only soak your porridge in the evening, before you turn in for the night. So he's not going out with a head torch because it would be dark and you'd need to go out. And if he even went out for a call of nature, he's not going to go far from his tent. And I was out last night, through the night, and it was murky, it was cloudy and everything. You can't get lost that much, you know what I mean? But in bad weather you can. But this is another thing. I did some research and found that the reports that the weather was bad when he went missing is not true. The weather turned bad on the day that the Neil was reported missing on the Monday. And thankfully, I found a guy that uploaded on YouTube and on Facebook. He was actually the other side of that little mountain range on the West Highland Way. And them days, he was passing by, and he's got photos and video out, and the skies are blue, there's clouds, just little puffy clouds. Beautiful days, he said. The weather changed on the Monday, and again, I'll give you the date here. So if we're led to believe Neil went missing on the Sunday, the weather didn't change to 6:30 in the morning, where it was heavy rain from 6:30 in the morning. So the weather up to then was not bad. It was good. It was good weather for the days before. The bloke on the West Highland Way is saying what wonderful weather he's had. And he's only a mile across that range, and you can see the videos and see the photos where he's zooming around and scanning around. There's no mass great black clouds in the horizon or anything. So it's killed that one on the head straight away, because that's facts as well. But the weather changed at 6:30 in the morning on the Monday, and that Monday was the day the friends turned round due to the bad weather. Now, I don't know why they didn't stay in the tent. Maybe they were a bit, thinking poor Neil's back at the loch, you know what I mean? The weather's turned nasty, maybe we'll go and check on him. Maybe they were suspicious of something, worried. But obviously when they get back and Neil's not there, it's pouring down the rain. And that's when they raise the alarm. So, Neil could have gone. If Neil disappeared on the Sunday, the weather was fine. If he disappeared on the Saturday night, because don't forget, they're saying that Neil was all by himself. The verified family members saying that they stopped at a lot, but Neil pitched there and they left him with 5 days' food. Again, it doesn't make sense what he was going to do for 5 days. This man that only got himself lost and wandering months before in 2021. So I then assessed all the evidence that I've got, and here's a man that's frailer than I thought he was, probably in poor health than I thought he was. Gets confused. It's been muddled for many years. Probably hasn't kept his fitness up, sadly, because of health, maybe. Doesn't really show any interest in all this. Again, just because you go once a year, for a walk or into Scotland or something like that, doesn't mean you're really into it. I mean, I remember in the past I used to get involved in things and I wasn't greatly interested, but it got me out the house, or I was with friends, so you join in, like cross-country running and things like that. Maybe some bike riding, if it's getting you out in the fresh air, you'll do it. Doesn't mean, you're a cyclist and someone that's doing it on a regular basis. So I think that's what Neil was doing. He was going out with his friends once a year maybe. And, Scotland was somewhere they went, so he joined in, He enjoyed his whiskey, he enjoyed the breweries and things like that. That's what he did show passion, but I can see nothing on his profile that hints that he loved Munros, he loved hiking, camping, being out in the wilds and all that. I think there's one that's some ski resort in some foreign country, I can't remember where it is, and that's about it. you know. And the weirdest thing is, in 2016, he left a review on Tyndrum, by the way, which is the campsite at Tyndrum. And he says, perfect campsite. I'm not quoting word for word, but I'll put it up on the screen again. Where he says, just before, a place to visit and stay just before we lose ourselves in the mountains. And tell me if that isn't kind of uncanny, the actual words he said. Now, we have to look at several things, and we covered a lot of things, me and friends. We looked at everything from foul play to suicide, possible suicide, because I know a family member raised the point that to the press that he did suffer from depression, and that family member didn't believe it would be suicide. But why that person raised that issue, because press wouldn't have got hold of that information. That's private information, and also the police would never release anything like that, or mountain rescue. So I don't know why that was raised. It kind of directs people to think that if you raise that subject, so sometimes it's better not to raise a subject like that. And you cannot have any narrative. No one can have any narrative in this story, because once the friends had left Neil, or once Neil had turned back, whichever version is the correct version, no one knows what happened. Not family, not the two friends, because they weren't there. You have to be there to know what happened. So any narrative anyone is portraying, it doesn't matter if you're related or not, it's just guesswork. It's just assumptions. You know, everyone has a right to portray a view, but it doesn't mean their portrayal of any view is correct. You have to have a wider mind to things, and a more open mind to assess things. So as I say, we looked at foul play. I don't believe it's foul play. We looked at suicide. There was always a chance of suicide if someone's depressed, and I've seen in a lot of other cases where depression has always been raised, where I'm not talking about someone that just gets lightly depressed. I'm talking about depression is a big part in their life. So that has to be considered. But there's one other factor. I looked at the friends. I did a lot of research, and I scoured the internet and looked through profiles and everything. But there's one person we never, ever considered. And this is, again, not a negative in any way, but everyone has a right that if they decide to go missing, it's not against the law. As long as you're not doing it to kind of, deceive anyone, like to gain monetary funding or something like that. You know what I mean? Or I won't go into details, but you know what I mean. But to go missing is not illegal. And I sat down and we chatted to my friends and all that, and we said, but what happened if Neil decided he wanted to go missing? It happens in you hear the stories all the time. People decide to just go. And the reason I say that is the porridge is a problem, because if he'd soaked his porridge, that means he would have been at his campsite sometime in the evening to soak that porridge. You're not going to soak your porridge at 10 o'clock in the morning. You're not going to soak your porridge at lunchtime. You're going to soak your porridge probably just before you turn in, to be honest. At least an hour, 2 hours before you turn in. Now, if he soaked his porridge and then went for a hike and it's getting dark, you would have your head torch. And even if you were going for a hike, there's not very far someone could go if they're not very well or they're not fully fit. Don't forget, this is the same person that said he wasn't feeling it after only walking probably 4 miles, 5 miles from Victoria Bridge. It's not exactly a marathon, is it? And the day before, he'd been at Tyndrum campsite. So if they were on a planned 5-day hike and Neil decided after 5 miles that he weren't feeling it, then that shows health or something changed his mind. So another theory, I'm not saying it's the correct one, I'm just saying that another theory is, did Neil himself decide for some reason or other that when he got to Loch Dochard, he was going to shake his friends off and kind of say, no, go, continue. They gave him a car key because he had possessions in the car. But did Neil, I wouldn't say plan it, but did Neil decide that he was going to shake his friends off, pitch his tent? And so it all stuck with me. The tent was just too organised. It was too perfect. You know, everything was laid out. That's what I got told by a family member. It was all laid out and organised. He even had labels on this. And, you know, I do understand some people OCD and some people are very finicky about things. But to me, it just, you know, just felt too perfect, the campsite. Did he use that key to hide back to the car where he had some other clothes, other possessions, whatever he wanted? And did he just, I mean, he could have walked towards Tyndrum because there's a lovely path that leads all the way to Tyndrum. It's a trail. I think it's the West Highland Way, part of the West Highland Way. Get a bus, get a taxi, get on a train and just disappear. And everyone believes or thought he was round the loch, and we've all done checks and found that to be true. And trust me, Mountain Rescue have had divers, they've had police, have had specialist dog teams, they've had everything, you know, they've had sonar, they've had inflatable boats up and down. I mean, they've had dogs all over the place. People have been scanning and searching. I've gone round with the dogs. I've been around that loch and the surrounding area, God knows, about 6 times in glorious weather when the water's drained down. And that's the other thing, that water isn't deep. So if you wade out into that loch, you have to go quite a way till you start sinking, you know, above your waist. It's not a kind of place, oh, he went to the water's edge, fell in, and ended up kind of getting carried away. You know what I mean? And we talked to the locals, and I think I've said this before, anything that ends up in that loch, it doesn't run straight down the river towards Loch Dochard, like a lot of people would think, you know what I mean? The water runs off the mountains into Loch Dochard, pools there, and actually, you know, overflows, and then it has to run where the stepping stones are, and there's a rock formation. I tried walking across it, remember, once, and even though it's only 12 inches deep, it's rushing over them rocks at such a force that it's going to knock your feet. But it's like a filtration system. It actually filters logs and anything. It doesn't, you know, it's not a deep gully kind of flowing channel that leads down the river to the river and beyond to Loch Dochard. And we talked to the locals, and deer or anything that dies in that loch gets flowed down and then collects. It kind of, the way the current of the water spins around, it gets collected in a great big pools, and there's about 3 or 4 pools at the end of Loch Dochard going that way towards Loch Dochard and the river down to Loch Dochard, that it will collect, and dead deer or whatever will be floating in there for maybe 2 or 3 days, and sometimes people pull them out, whatever. But a human body won't just flow from Loch Dochard past them pools and over that rock formation that's more or less a filtration system. It's not deep at all, it's just fast flowing, and down to the river, and then that Loch Dochard. It doesn't work like that in a couple of days, you know. More than likely something would pool in them pools and sit there maybe up to a week, and then if the water's still high, then it would flow over. But even then, it'd have a job getting over the rock formations. It's not like, as I say, it's not a channel of water that's coming off. it's kind of anything would get dragged and caught on the top. It was 12 inches deep, and that's when it was flowing really fast one winter when you saw me going over there. It was only the speed of the water actually pushing my feet that stopped me continuing. Otherwise, I could have got across. So it's not deep. So that rules out, basically, unless someone was wedged under some logs. And again, there's one area of that loch where everything ends up, and I've seen it and I've been over there, and I was over there when the water was low, and I could actually see the bottom, and you could see the logs, you could see everything, you know what I mean? So again, I rule that out. So I've covered surrounding area, police, mountain rescue, volunteers, everyone. I've covered this surrounding area as well. I've covered the plantations and all that, and trust me, you can't get in them plantations. They're deep. The wood is so low. I was talking to Dominic last night, and we were agreeing that the wood is so low. You take your eye out, you cut your face to pieces. You just can't do it. So we've done them miniature locks round the back, you know, from Loch Dochard on the northern side. So the question is he in the area? That's what I'm now asking myself. I have to do them slopes on the northern side. I have to kind of be realistic and think, how far can this man get in the state and condition that we believe he was in, and his age? And I believe he was frail enough to struggle doing them kind of slopes. So he ain't going to get far. He ain't going to be doing, you know, there's one thing being an Isle of Skye, maybe having a trail and getting up 5 hours and all that, but it's another thing being in Loch Dochard. Once you go in the northern side, it's quite rough and wildernessy. It's very boggy, very hard. It'd be hard for me. And don't forget, he didn't have poles, didn't have waterproofs, just had the jacket basically he's got on his back. So I have to cover that northern side over at Loch Dochard to rule it out. But there's only so far you can go that is humanly possible. If it's a struggle for me, how would a man of 71, 72, that's not in the best of health, gets muddled, gets lost, and has no equipment, not even hiking poles, get as far or even further than me? And if I've got the hiking poles and I'm up here like once a month. I mean, it's only recently, it's been 2 months, but I'm normally up here every 4 or 6 weeks. And I've been doing it all my life. I've been in the military all my life. You know, it's not something that leaves you. You know what I mean? It's not something you take out as a pastime and suddenly decide to do off the back of you. You know, it's something you have to be doing day in and day out. Or like these Munroers, they're doing it all the time. You know, they don't just do one Munro 1 year and one Munro next. You know, that's not going to keep their fitness up. So, and don't forget, we've got to take his age into account. So that, as I say, that leads to the fact that he could have, I'm not saying he has, he could have decided to call it quits and decide to go missing. And that's a different story, isn't it? Why people do this, we don't know. This could be a million reasons why someone does it. I'm not going to go into them. You all heard the stories, and we've all seen where someone's ended up somewhere else and, you know, leading a different life. Who knows, eh? But as I say, these are the facts. I'm posting on the facts from Web Sleuths. I'm posting the facts of the photo. I'm posting the facts of, you know, the history. You know, I'm not making assumptions here. I'm providing everyone with the evidence, and for them to decide and figure out what might have happened. And as I say, I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend anyone. I'm continuing the search. I've got to do the northern areas to 100% rule them out. But there has to be a time when you know, at first I thought he'd been near the loch. Then I thought, well, maybe surrounding areas. Then I was thinking the valley. But I was thinking he was a fit. When I say fit, I thought he was fit for his age. I thought he was healthy and a regular mountaineer and kind of Munroer. But the photo on the missing posters is very misleading. I'm not going to say it was done intentionally. I mean, it could have been just a recent photo they had, a family member, and just provided to the press. But there's other photos released to the press again of that same age and same time that show him looking quite fit and healthy and bright, you know. But as you've seen, the photo I've shown makes it look totally different. It looks much frailer. So that's the conclusion I come to, that I've got to clear these northern areas and make sure 100% if I'm struggling getting up there, then definitely Neil would struggle. And don't forget, he might have been doing it in the dark if we believe that he left after soaking his porridge. If he did it in the morning, now this is the people say, well, he could have done it in the morning. Don't forget, it was torrential rain from 6:30 in the morning. It got light about 5:15. When I mean light, I don't mean bright. I mean the slight early signs of morning were 5:15. It wouldn't have been light enough for someone to go out walking to about 5:30 at the earliest. That's giving them an hour at most. But let's be honest, if the weather's bad, you can see it a mile off coming in. You know what I mean? It's not suddenly hitting you within that 45. And don't forget, we're saying that Neil hit the morning walk as soon as it got light, and we all know that's not true. You know, you get up, you have a call of nature, you probably have a cup of coffee, you get dressed. By that time, another half hour's gone. So at the most, he would have had half an hour. And that would have only took him, and my pacing, that would have took him to the ruins at 24 minutes. I timed it. And if you can see that river coming in, you're going to turn around. You're not going to carry on up a mountain slope. You'd have to be, you know, out of your mind to be carrying on walking when it's pouring down the rain. So, as I say, it's quite a confusing one. And there's always the possibility he did decide to go missing himself. So it's something we can't rule out. We have to be realistic. So, as I say, I'm going to search as far as I can. And I know, hand on heart, I've done as much searching as physically can be possible. Otherwise, as I was saying to my friend, and my friend agreed, we could be searching beyond and more mountains beyond. And, you know, it isn't realistic that he would have done that. You know, there's been cases where people got missing, but not when you take in his health and his age and all the other bits. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense how he would get as far as he would without, especially without hiking posts in there. There's no paths up there. You know what I mean? On the map it looks like there's a track. There's no track. I've been up there. You're going up slippery gradients where the water is running off rock. You know what I mean? It's not doable. So, you know, I've got to be realistic. And as I say, when I thought he was a Monroe and fit person, and you know, don't thought, yeah, he's been dragged into them valleys, and he's like me, he loves the wilderness, and he's gone. You know what I mean? But the more I looked into Neil as a person and the character and all that, then I realised that the narrative that he's a Monroe, an outdoorsy person, is fit and keeps himself going and all that, it's not quite true. I'm sorry. And someone has to be honest, you know what I mean, and say, you know, you can't say on one hand his health was bad. And I mean, let's be honest, he was struggling after 5 miles at the most from Victoria Bridge to Loch Dochard. And it still doesn't answer why. Yeah, what was he going to do for 5 days? You know, this is a man that got lost on the Isle of Skye the year before, you know, probably 6 to 9 months before. What was he going to do at Loch Dochard by himself if he was getting lost like that? What, you know, and why would his friends leave him? And I think they've got the blunt of it because it doesn't make sense why they would leave him. But again, if I said to a friend with me, I said, look, I'm all right, leave me, go, you know, and I was pushy about it, in the end, they would go. And I think that's what's probably happened with them. It's on the assumption on my part, no one knows the truth, and that's everyone. No one knows the truth. You cannot push a narrative unless you know the facts, and no one knows what happened after he went missing. So it's a bit long, but I want to provide the evidence. I want people to see the truth. And as I say, there's no agenda on my part. Not trying to upset anyone. I'm not trying to offend anyone. I'm putting the facts, and the facts basically speak for themselves. You know, you cannot have one family member only months after stating that the press have got it all wrong, and this is the truth, and then another family member in the next month saying, no, this is the truth. They're contradicting each other. So it seems like there's confusion about what actually happened themselves. So, yeah, as I say, I will search the northern slopes. I will push up as far as I need to, but it's use a bit of common sense now. You know what I mean? Because otherwise you could be doing this for the next 10, 20 years. Right. I'm sorry. I'm sure someone will comment that maybe I've been a bit too blunt or maybe too cold or something. But I think for the police sake, because the police spent loads of time, Mountain Rescue spent loads of time. There's been other volunteers. Lots of people have taken interest in it. But if they only read what's in the press, they're not getting the full story. And if they read and look for themselves what has been posted on by other family members, and they see the photo for themselves and see some of the other facts, you know what I mean, and then sit down, then they get a better picture. So as I say, I'm sorry if it's offended anyone.